All right. All right, guys. So this has been a long overdue project in the making. I am basically going to tell you my documentary and my life from when I went from basically being this to who I am now. So this is me, Jonathan Edward Kraning. Yep, that's me. Jonathan Edward Kraning. Basically, that's me there. Me there. I was born at 11:46 p.m. on December 4th, 1979. I was 7 pounds, 13 ounces, and I was 21 inches. Basically, 21 inches long is what I was. Yep. When I was born, and that's what I look like. Yep. I was just your little splash in the pan kid. That's what I look like. And then I grew up, basically I grew up to look kind of like this. I grew up like this. Yep. I grew up like that little kid right there. That's me. Right there. Little kid. Great little kid. And I went on to be sexier. I look like the kid from Meet the Robertsons. Yeah. Yeah, I grew up really fast. Some say, some say this was, a handsome kid at one time. I don't know. What do you guys think? Huh? That's me right there. Yeah, that's me. A weird kid. Yep. Yeah, I turned out to be a pretty weird kid. Yeah, I mean, look at these pictures here. This was 1982. I mean, that's me right there. That's me as a young kid. Yeah. And then I grew up. This is 1983. A year later. Yeah. That's what I look like, y'all. And then this was fourth grade, 1989. Yep. 1989. That was me. Didn't even know how to tie a tie, and my dad saved my ass a couple of times. This was third grade. Yep. Handsome fella, don't I look like one, huh? Yeah, this right here. This was that one picture I just showed you. But, you could say I look like Vin Diesel, baby. Yeah. This right here. This is my character side. Basically, I laughed my ass off all the time. I look like a little baby. I was a little baby. My guy was like crazy. Yeah, this picture, I don't know when that was. I have no idea. I look really weird. Yeah. I don't know. This right here, young picture, basically of me. I told you, I do look like this is 1991. I mean, I look like the kid from Meet the Robertsons. I swear to God, I look like the kid from Meet the Robertsons. Yes, I do. And that was me before 1991. I think this was when I was in kindergarten. I can't remember. But there was a lot of weird things in my life that happened when I was young. And I was born. This is my certificate of, when I was born. Yep. I was born Jonathan Edward Kraning, 1146, Barnes County, Valley City Clinic. My mom was Marilyn Jeanette Hanson. My dad was Gregory Edward Kraning. Funny thing is my parents weren't married yet. Yeah, well, my mom didn't have her name legally changed yet. Well, she was still, you know, but, you know, yeah, I was born in North Dakota. My mom and dad were both 31 when they had me. Sometimes you just wonder, You wonder back on all this stuff, and you look at yourself and you wonder, yeah, you wonder how things turned out when I was born, and everybody wonders. They always say, Jack, you lived a really different life. I moved around when I was a kid, but we weren't in the military. My dad worked for a Turner construction company. He was a project manager. You know, he was uh, he was a pretty interesting fella. My dad was, and my mom was a wonderful lady. A lot of things and a lot of people don't know that much about me, but the one thing that I've been a creating for almost 30, I've been a creating for almost 45 years of my life. And I've been a part of this family. And every time I ever hang out with my aunts and my uncles and I hang out with everybody in my family, I always think, you know, was I what's their opinion on me? What do they think about me? You know? Because I always wanted to make sure that my parents were never ever mad at me. I never wanted my parents to ever, I never wanted my parents to like really, I never really wanted my parents to really think that I was ever, down or, wasn't feeling good or wasn't anything, I was just your everyday kid. I had a security blanket. I had a doll named Justin, a Cabbage Patch doll. Yeah, I did. I was a different kind of person, man. I have friends. I have people that know me and people who understand who I am, you know. But I was born in a small town, you know, and you're probably thinking, Oh my God, he's gonna go into the John Cougar Mellencamp song. I was born in a small town, and I can breathe in a small town. Going down in a small town. Yeah, that's probably where they'll bury me. But I don't know. You know, I was born in a town. Well, I was born in Valley City, but I grew up in a small town called Lemoore. Lemoore, North Dakota is one of those kind of places that you go there and it kind of reminds you of Mayberry. You know, it kind of reminds you of like a really small town that everybody knows what you did as a kid, or if you got arrested, you knew who you were. I mean, I was in the paper. I was, um, if you go back into all of my history here, I mean, if you go back into the history of my life, there's a lot of things in my history. I made, one of the papers. I made the paper, you know, and in the paper, I was playing baseball, and you know, I was having fun, just living my life. Just an everyday kid, Laurel, that was Cold Spring Elementary School, going down on a sled and, you know, doing things, But, I grew up and I lived a really weird lifestyle, and I go through all these old pictures. I go through these old pictures of my life, and, that was me, man. That was who I was. I was just a kid, you know, not knowing what was going to go on with his life. 90% of the time I was scared. You know, I didn't want to piss off somebody. I felt like, you know, I felt like, I was on top of the world, man. I don't know. Yeah. Loudoun County High School. Yeah. I was part of, so you know, in July 2nd in 1982, I mean, we had the centennial, and yeah, I was in the centennial parade, the children's parade. Yeah, the War Centennial Children's Parade. I was part of it. I got the little thing to go along with it. You know, I was just a kid. I would walk around my mom and dad's house in North Dakota and Lemoore and pretend I had guns in my hand, and I would be like Yosemite Sam. But too bad the hat that I was wearing was a woman's sundress hat, and I was wearing shorts and thinking I was funny and crazy, and I was just a kid. I was just a kid that basically didn't know what he wanted to do. Just that day, he wanted to go outside. I mean, I was 4 years old when the Dukes of Hazzard came on TV. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have my 4-year-old birthday party until I watched the Dukes of Hazzard. I grew up in a time, in a place that I never ever thought that I would ever leave North Dakota. I mean, I never thought that I would ever go, and then I ended up getting I ended up getting to Virginia, and I lived in Virginia and I went to school there. And like, I think it was either 1985 or, well, it was, I mean, we lived in Fairfax, Virginia. I remember living in Fairfax, Virginia and going to kindergarten, going to school, being there. And I went to kindergarten pretty much, and I went to Laurel Ridge Elementary School all the way till sixth grade. Yeah, went to Laurel Ridge Elementary School when I was in sixth grade, and went through all of that. And then before I had to go to, before I was going to go to Robinson High School. Yeah, Robinson High School, we moved and went back home to North Dakota. And I went to Lemoore High School, back and forth, always back and forth. I was, I was in North Dakota in the summertime. I was a young kid. I was really tall. I was really, kind of, just like every other kid, and I was living my life. Now, I drove four-wheeler or three-wheeler. My grandpa had a three-wheeler, he had a three-wheeler, and I flipped the thing over, had it land on top of me. Didn't kill me, though, because I'm still here now. But I never did like that three-wheeler. That thing was dangerous. Yeah. Four-wheelers, I don't mind. I'm not a big fan of motorcycles. Never a big fan of that. But I came from a small town. I came from a town where your neighbor knew what you were doing before you were even doing it. I know that people always sit there and they say to me, Jack, you're from a place where growing up was the coolest thing that you could ever do. You could wake up and not have to worry about gunfire or not have to worry about something happening because it wasn't in that time. It wasn't in that time. It wasn't in that era. No, it was a small town. Lemoore, North Dakota is one of the smallest towns, that I ever seen, you know, and my grandpa had a butcher shop there. It was called Lemoore Lockers. I really enjoyed going to there all the time, and I lived my life. I rode bikes. I did all kinds of things, scraped my knees. You know, I always looked up to everybody, and I just never really ever thought that I would ever, be great or accomplish anything being from a small town. But one of the things I love about being from a small town is when you tell people where you're from, they like look at you and they go, "What's Lemoore?" And I'm like, "Look it up." You know, when you're bored someday and you're in North Dakota and you want to go see something really cool, go see Lemoore. You don't know why you pulled up there, but you know what? You'll feel great about yourself once you get there. You know, a lot of cool things to see in that little town. I'm actually thinking about taking a documentary and, keep doing this documentary and showing people where I live. Because what this documentary is about me and the transformation that I've gone through from being born in 1979, December 4th, 1979, to now, to present. I know you guys are probably sitting there thinking, God, why is this asshole wanting to do a documentary about himself? Well, the thing is that once this documentary starts going, you'll never hear or see anything about Jack Kraning ever again. Well, let's get it fucking straight. My name is Jonathan Edward Kraning. Yes, that's my name. And then I started calling myself Jack because I didn't like spelling out Jonathan all the time. I didn't like spelling out Jonathan. I didn't like the name Jonathan. I never liked it because um, Jonathan just did not fit with me, if you know what I mean. It didn't make me feel like me, you know. But there was something about Jack, something that I loved about the name Jack all the time. And then kids in school used to call me Jack Mehoff and, all that other stuff and all that bullshit came along. But that's what made me stronger, you know. That's what made me great. I never worried about that kind of shit, you know. But did you know that all the time through school, from going to kindergarten, see, I never went to school. I went to school in Lemoore, but I went to school in Lemoore when I was in I think it was like seventh, eighth, and ninth grade. And then we went back to Virginia when I was in 10th, 11th, and 12th. But when I was in Lemoore, man, that was just a place that was more carefree. Winters all the time with snow everywhere, you know, beautiful snowfalls. I mean, we had snow almost every year in we had snow almost every year in North Dakota. Yeah, we had snow all the time in North Dakota, and it was good snow too. You know, it was it was all that snow that you wanted when you were a young kid and you went outside and you played in the snow for 3.5 hours until you were called inside because it was too cold. But Lemoore, North Dakota, people in Lemoore, North Dakota, the one thing about it is that when you live in Lemoore, North Dakota, the one thing about it is that when you live there, you feel like you're a part of something. I mean, they had centennials. I mean, they had a centennial parade, which was so cool. I mean, you know, everybody in the neighborhood felt like they were your family. I mean, you used to go to the Big Cone. You used to go to the Dairy Bar. Every time you'd hang out with your Uncle Dick or you'd hang out with your grandpa at the bar or the butcher shop, you felt like you were always, welcome there. At least I always thought I was. My grandpa Bill, one of the greatest guys I ever met, one of the greatest dudes I ever met, always had money on him and always gave you a stick of gum, you know, and you know, you always felt like you were a part of. You always felt like you were a part of something when Grandpa was around. You know, he never. I don't think he ever really raised his voice at me once. I mean, the only time he ever got mad at me was I think when I flipped the when I flipped the three wheeler, but I didn't know what I was doing, and I ended up doing something wrong and flipped the three wheeler. I ended up breaking the handlebar, and Grandpa got all mad at me about it. But you know, but he was a different kind of a guy. My grandpa was. My grandma Lou, very wonderful lady. She's no longer with us anymore. Either is my grandpa. And anybody that I talk to about my history, my grandma Marge was Marjorie Hope Craning. Her last name was Hope. Yeah, and then it was Craning. But Marjorie Hope Kraning was one of the greatest ladies that I ever met. She was she was the secretary for Senator Barry Goldwater. She went to the Junri School of Karate, and she was a very wonderful person. Um, she she loved me. Well, I think the reason why she loved me was because I was a spitting image of her oldest son, my dad, and because most of the most of the girls in the Craning family, in my family anyway, are girls. I have two older sisters, um, Katie and Krista, and I was raised by, you know, Carrie Craning, and I was raised by Maria, or not Maria, but I was raised by Kim and Carrie. Kim and Carrie, you know, Krista and Katie. I mean, they raised me when I was a kid, and then when I came along, you know, when I came along, everything was different. I mean, my grandma Marge, I mean, she loved me. I miss the hell out of my grandma Marge. Yeah. Yeah, she was a wonderful lady. Yeah, she was a very wonderful lady. She she would make me chocolate chip cookies. She would make me toast and cocoa wheats and everything, man. There were times that I would go over to her house and I was supposed to go to school and I wouldn't go to school. I wouldn't go to school. I would hang out with my grandma Marge. And I love that woman so much. I did so much for her, you know, but she always did a lot for me, you know. She was such a wild woman. I remember one time my grandma would take me downtown Washington, D.C., and we would just go on the metro and we'd walk around and we'd do all kinds of stuff. And I was supposed to be at school and I didn't do anything. There were times that I had my nanny. Um, Her name was Heidi, and she was a weird lady. I mean, I don't remember when I was with Heidi. I can't remember when I was with her, but she was a nanny, and she was always taking me to the zoo. We were always supposed to go to school, and she would take me someplace else, and we'd never go to school, and I would never go to school. I never would be at class, but I always had my reasons. I always had a great, story. And I always think about going back to Lemoore all the time and going back and playing baseball in the summertime. You know, every Sunday, Zor Lutheran Church, going there all the time and seeing Pastor Estrogen or whatever his name was, and just going back to Lemoore and living in that small little town. I used to mow lawns in that town. I'd pull the lawnmower behind my bike. I used to, I think I mowed people's grasses about like 6,000 times, saved up so much money working harvest. I mean, I hang out with Dwayne Peterson, one time I rode in the combine with him and watched how he did it and thought it was the coolest thing ever was to learn how to, drive combine, but I wish I would have been able to go a little further with the whole thing. always hanging out with Dwayne Peterson, trying to, be happy and enjoy it and have fun. Grandma and Grandma and Grandpa probably wondering where I was at driving around in the four-wheeler out in the field, you know, or they probably didn't even know that I was gone, didn't even know what I was up to. I mean, Lemoore, North Dakota, different little town, man, different little place. I'm actually thinking about going there one day and showing you guys what it's about. I mean, I'd have to drive pretty far to get there. I think Lemoore to, I think Lemoore to from St. Cloud to Lemoore is like almost what 4 hours to get there, maybe. Yeah, because it's like 161 miles to get to Fergus Falls or to get to Moorhead, and then you go. You don't even really go to Moorhead. You go to 210, and you go to Highway 210. You go through Wahpeton. Yeah, Wahpeton. Went to school there. Yeah, but that's a different chapter on the documentary. But God, I miss Lemoore sometimes. Growing up there was different. I mean, I was only in Lemoore for let's see here. I was born in 1979, and then we moved. Yeah, we moved to Virginia when I was. I think I was. I think I was. Well, we spent Christmases and time like that, and what's it called? And then I think I started kindergarten. I think I was probably around, well, 79. I was, yeah, one, or like I was, 11 months or whatever. I was 11 months old, and I was one, and then I was two. And then two, I think I think I started kindergarten when I was five. So 81, 2, 3, 4, yeah. So like 84, maybe I was starting kindergarten. 81. I mean, I don't know, but I was something. I was a young kid, and we were traveling back and forth, man. So fun. I remember one night, my dad and mom, we were driving from Virginia to Lemoore or North Dakota. We were driving in an '86 Chevy Nova. Yeah, we were all laying in the back of the Nova, and we were going to North Dakota. And the kids were all laying in there, and we were all laying down, and we had a dog with us. The dog would always piss its pants, or the dog would always pee on us, and then I would pee on somebody, and because I was always mad, I didn't, want to deal with the crap, and I couldn't go outside and go to the bathroom, and whatever. I had fun though. But the one thing that you have to understand is that, my parents were great people. I miss talking to my mom and dad. I really do. You know, I mean, my mom called me yesterday. Said she hasn't heard from me, and well, my parents haven't heard from me since Christmas. So, but yeah, I mean, my parents, that's a different documentary title and chapter too. We'll get into that later. So basically what you guys are going to get out of this is you're going to get a live documentary on me telling you about the whole transformation that I've gone through. Everything that I've ever tried to remember, because I want you guys to understand who I am and what makes me tick. The story behind this guy. Yeah. The wonderful person that I am. Because I just want you guys to know that I have a pretty decent life. There was once in a time in my life when I wrote a story called, Jack Kraning, My Awesome Life. Yeah. Yeah, it was called Jack Kraning, My Awesome Life. And it was a story that I wrote for class, for school. Yep. I wrote it for school. It talked about everything that I've ever done. But I can't find it now. Nope. I looked through all my documentary and all my stuff. Or I looked through all my folders and my stuff, and I gotta look through all my stuff again and see if I can find it. But I probably won't. But it was a story about me. So, but I mean, there was things that happened in my life that I did, and I played football. Went to Loudoun County High School. Played football there. Did I like what became of me? No. Because Loudoun County High School was a totally different story. I mean, I was really, Loudoun County High School, that's totally a different, time and place. And everything else about Loudoun County High School was so different. Went to Laurel Ridge Elementary School. Yeah. Went to Laurel Ridge Elementary School. And, I had all kinds of problems and everything else there when I went to that school. Never ever thought that shit would ever happen like it did. You go to a school, you've been there, for 5, almost 6 years of your life. Yeah. You go all the way to 6th grade. You finish going to school, you're 6 years. You go to school and you talk to people and you graduate with, or not graduate, but you move on. You know what I'm saying? You move on from 6th grade. You're supposed to start high school, but then your parents move you back to Minnesota or back to Virginia or back to North Dakota, and you go to North Dakota. And you go to North Dakota, you go back there. You do your 7th, 8th, 9th grade at Lemoore High School. And then you're getting ready to go on to higher education. Both of your sisters graduate with like only 20 to 30 students. You go to school in Loudoun County High School and you're part of a class, a graduating class of probably about 2,000 students. No, not 2,000. Probably about 200, 300 students, I think it was. I don't know, maybe I exaggerated. About 300 and some students. Mostly their names were all like White and Nelson and King, Johnson. Yeah, I mean, there were so many Greens, Greens, Johnsons, you know. And then they couldn't even spell my goddamn name right. Spelled my name Kraning. Yeah, Kroning. I can't even find my yearbook. I think my yearbook's in my is in one of my I think my yearbook is in one of my tubs out in the garage, I think. Even though I don't want to look at those memories. That was the shittiest goddamn thing in my life, is going to fucking school in Loudoun County, Virginia. I mean, I met some great people there. I met Dustin Van Camp and Brian Sullivan and TJ White and Aaron and Aaron White and, you know, his brother. And I met PJ and Bryant Johnson and pretty much Chris Johnson. All these people that I used to know, met Brian Sullivan. Brian Sullivan is by far still one of the greatest friends I ever met. I'm still friends with him now, Brian Franz. I met him when I lived in Virginia, and he was a cool kid. Yeah, he was a cool kid, but now he's a great man. But man, growing up, I'll tell you, man, you guys are gonna go into a documentary that you guys haven't really seen anything before, and I'll tell you right now, I really hope that things start to change in my life because they need to. I'm not dying or anything like that, so don't get that any ideas. I'm just living my life every day, trying to realize to myself that, I've met some wonderful people in my life. It'd be like Jake, Jacob Hope, you know. It was so funny. My grandma's last name was Marjorie Hope Kraning. Yeah, you know, and I think she was a Shook before, if I'm not mistaken, or she was a Softly. I think she was a Softly before she became a Kraning. But yeah, I think she was Marjorie Hope Softly. I think is what she was before, but I'm not sure. But my grandma Marge, I mean, she lived a wonderful life. Or at least I think she did. From what I saw, she was one of the greatest grandmas in the world. Yeah. I mean, Grandma Lou was great too. Don't get me wrong. I love Grandma Lou as well. I mean, she lived longer than Grandma Marge did, but sometimes I just wonder. I mean, I always sit here and I try to write, wow, who's watching? Hello. Who's watching on Facebook? Welcome to my documentary. But like I said, my grandma Marge she was a wonderful lady. I mean, she was totally different than everybody that I ever met. I mean, she worked for Secretary, Senator, or she was the secretary for Senator Barry Goldwater. She was really cool. She was laid back, one of the nicest grandmas you could ever imagine. Always did stuff for you. Always, made you feel really good. Made you feel like you mattered. Made you feel like you lived your life and enjoyed it. My grandma Lou was the same way. My grandma Marge got me into bowling though. Yeah, my grandma Marge used to be a bowler. Yeah, she got me into bowling, and she was really good at it too. Really a good bowler. Yeah, she was. You know, and yeah, I don't know. The walls are talking, making ticking noises. Sounding like there's a time bomb going off in the wall. Always seems like there's something going on in this place. I've lived in all sorts of fucking places. Yeah. Well, it's 3 in the morning, and I'm starting this documentary so that you guys can get to know me, and I hope that you guys like it. I mean, so far I've only had one person watch, but if you guys really want to truly know me, everything's coming out. And then also, I am going to be doing the Jaxamous, the Berserker story, which is my fantasy comic book, which is my graphic novel. Yep, my fantasy comic book about Jaxamus the Berserker, a Viking character that supposedly is where I got my ideas for the name Jaxamus from. So I'm actually going to do that too on YouTube, but we're going to start that story um, later. Once I get this documentary done, we'll get into that one. Only if you guys want me to. But anyway, it's getting late, and I don't want to be up doing a documentary too damn long. But I love you guys, and I hope that you guys get a lot out of me. And um, I hope you guys get to learn a little bit more about who I am and what uh, what I have to offer. And maybe I might, you know, get to meet a new Mrs. Claus. Maybe out of all this, maybe she feels sorry for me and wants to, you know, get to know me and date me. Or I'll just get ghosted and catfish like I always do. You know, sometimes I wonder if I'm just wasting your guys' time. But I don't know why the heck you guys watch, because some of you guys do. So, thank you for watching part one of the documentary on Jack Kraning, a.k.a. jaxamous klauz, who Jack is and where he came from, the beginning. Because this is going to go on for a long time. You'll probably hear some things. You'll probably laugh. You'll probably cry. Or you probably won't even watch. But until that time comes for when they have to put me in the cremation chamber and light me up and get rid of this good looks and this great body. I'm hoping someday that I can be better. All right. Well, this is my story, and I'm sticking to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. This ends chapter 1, the beginning. And where did Jaxamus, or where did Jack come from? And who is he? I hope you keep watching to get the story and know the glory of me. Take care.